By golly, look at me! Hard at work on my script for the Hanneman video. Such a diligent worker, I'm almost done writing the entire script. Oh no! It appears that my laptop has crashed. That's okay. Surely I was remembering to save the script file constantly, so at most, I lost only about a few sentences of progress. Well, let's see how much that script was left. My goodness, that is a setback. But that's okay. I will assuredly handle this in a calm and dignified manner. One of the most tried and true tropes in the fantasy genre is the really old dude with magic powers, a mainstay of fictional mages for decades. The one most people recognize is probably Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Old man with big hat and a wicked beard is the wizard design, and it's still used frequently today. Fire Emblem's had its fair share of old wizards in the past, the almighty Gateau in FE1, good old Athos in FE7, and most recently, Hanneman in FE3 houses. And while he might not have as nice of a beard as the wizards before him, he's still just as cool as all those other badass old sorcerers in media. So today, we're gonna dive into Hanneman, the father of Crestology, and see what makes him such an effective teacher and such an awesome character. Hanneman is introduced at the start of the game, as he's one of the teachers who takes over a house, whichever one of the two that the player didn't pick. Now, normally this is where I would go into what he does in the story, but the thing is, he doesn't actually do anything in the story. He's not like Yuritsa, who goes around stabbing people. He's not like Manuela, who goes around getting stabbed. He's just kinda there. He helps introduce the mystery of Byleth's crest, but that whole ordeal gets solved by Byleth's existence. And after the start, Hanneman's just kinda in the background. You have to seek him out to talk to him. So to get anything from him, we'll need to dive into his supports right out of the gate here. But before we do, I need to explain what crests are for people that haven't played Three Houses. Hanneman is known as the father of Crestology, and his research into crests comes up constantly. So you need to understand crests if you want to understand him. About 1,000 years prior to Three Houses' plot, some dudes mixed their blood with dragon blood, which granted them superpowers ranging from talking to animals to being slightly stronger than a normal dude. This bloodline manifests into a crest, which is basically like a birthmark, and anyone who has a crest is generally considered to be up top in society, and having a bloodline with a crest became a hot commodity that everyone and their mother wanted. However, crests are really mysterious. They don't always manifest, even if the person is of the magical bloodline, and their powers vary for seemingly no reason. There are two types of crests. Years of heterosexual sex having has weakened the bloodline, giving birth to minor crests that only kinda have superpowers, and why these manifest over major crests or no crests at all is a mystery. And once someone is born, they are stuck with whatever they had. Major, minor, or no crest, what you're born with is what you got. And in no way does this ever change. Putting a crest on someone is definitely 100% impossible. Anyways, that's what Hanneman studies. We'll start with some simple supports. Considering that he's a teacher at the academy, let's look at Hanneman being a good teacher. His support with Linhardt starts with the green-haired lad considering giving up on his own crest studies, purely because he doesn't want to have to talk to people, and researching crests requires you to talk to people with crests, and Linhardt just doesn't have the energy for that. Hanneman tries to convince him to keep with it. He asks Linhardt to find a goal for himself. Linhardt studies crests just because they're interesting to him, but why does he study crest? What's the end goal Linhardt wants to get out of it? By making Linhardt evaluate that, Hanneman helps Linhardt reach an answer. Linhardt has no idea what he wants out of crest research, because Linhardt is so aimless, he's me when I play a first-person shooter. But Hanneman tells him it's okay not to have a goal so soon after he told him to find one. Sometimes goals find the person, not the other way around. Linhardt asks Hanneman what his goal is, and Hanneman wishes to make a world where everyone has access to crests, where no one will have to struggle because they do or don't have the power of one. Linhardt admires Hanneman's enthusiasm for his dream, and Linhardt figures that maybe if he works with Hanneman, he might get some of that enthusiasm himself too. This support, on a minor level, shows Hanneman's motive for researching crests, though other supports go into that much more, and it also shows Hanneman being a good teacher. His passion becomes his students' passion. He isn't just handing out worksheets and then leaving to take a drag in the teacher's lounge. He genuinely cares about his profession and the passion of his students. The support does well into helping us understand how Hanneman can be a good teacher, and thus gives him some likability. Hanneman's role as a teacher is also explored in his ability to help students with their problems beyond studying. For example, see Marianne. Hanneman approaches the young woman, as despite her best efforts to hide it, Hanneman is able to sense the crest's power on her. He attempts to get her to learn about her crests, as a safe understanding of one's own crest is very helpful for their own health and potentially the health of others. He encourages Marianne to learn the talents of her crest and use them for the good of herself and those around her. And due to a whole lot of emotional baggage that I don't have time to go into, Marianne refuses, insisting that she has no talents to speak of, and she runs off. Hanneman isn't so easily deterred, however. His persistence often borders on annoyance, and he approaches Marianne once again. He reveals he knows of her crest's powers, and understands why Marianne would try to hide it from people and herself, but he nevertheless stresses the point that it's a bad idea. He's not saying Marianne should run around like a jackass screaming, "I have a crest!" but he thinks she should learn to accept who she is. Marianne can deny it all she wants, but she does have a crest, and that crest does have powers. To deny that would be to deny who she is. Hanneman wants Marianne to live life as herself. Marianne should get to unabashedly, unapologetically be Marianne. And after the 5-year time skip, she does just that. Though not just from Hanneman's word, but her own growth as a person and willingness to change. The support is honestly more for Marianne's development than Hanneman's, but it does show Hanneman being a kind, well-intentioned teacher that helps hammer in his likability and his role to people as a mentor figure. But come on, Hanneman being a nice dude, a likable character with enjoyable supports, that's not why you're here. You want to see the suffering, the trauma, the angst that is so sad, but in turn makes us understand the character, and maybe even learn something about ourselves. It's time to go into Hanneman's sad anime backstory. His Edelgard support begins with her questioning Hanneman's decision to leave the Empire. See, Hanneman was a nobleman of Adrestia, but he left decades before Three Houses began. She isn't able to convince him to spill the beans, but her hesitation and doubts of Hanneman's character linger until their support continues after the time skip, if you pick the Black Eagles. Edelgard asks Hanneman why he sided with her. Considering that she wants to abolish crests, it makes no sense that a man whose entire life is dedicated to crests would want to side with her. Hanneman raises the valid point that crests won't just disappear overnight, so even in a society that's getting rid of them, understanding them is still necessary, so Hanneman's life work won't be wasted with Edelgard. However, she still has her doubts over Hanneman, and decides to do some snooping around in his history to figure out why he left the Empire so many years prior. And in doing so, she ends up realizing that Hanneman is a lot more like her than she initially thought. See, decades prior to the game's start, Hanneman was in a noble family of 3 crests. He and his grandfather had minor ones, and his father had a major one. Though, Hanneman had a sister who was born crestless. Not uncommon, because crests kinda just choose whoever gets to have superpowers and who is stuck without them. She was married off to a power-hungry noble who sought to use her bloodline to make crest babies. Since her father bore a major crest, there was a chance she could produce crest children for her husband. But the crests just didn't feel like showing up, and after many children that failed to have a crest, she died of an affliction of the heart. at least according to official records. What most likely happened, and what Edelgard and Hanneman believe, is that her failure to make a baby with a crest led to her getting abused by her husband, and her death was instead a consequence of that. And that tragedy, a death of an innocent woman who was used as a puppet to get some rich dick into greater political standing, was what spurred Hanneman to dedicate himself to his research to the point of being famous around the continent.
As an up-and-coming crest scholar at the time, I knew only despair. What was the use of my research if I could not even save my own sister?
That's why you abandoned your position in the Empire and came to Garrick Mach.
My sister is far from the only victim. Many noblemen have done the same to their own wives, and I despise them for it. So my quest began. I would unlock the secrets of crests, make them available to any who desired. If I achieved my goal, the nobility would be rendered obsolete, and my sister could finally rest peacefully.
Hanneman's ultimate goal is to create a world where everyone has a crest. In simple terms, if everyone's special, no one will be special. Hanneman's motive lies in rebelling against classism and freeing opportunities to everyone, letting anyone who wants a crest have one, and anyone who doesn't want one to lose it. This makes his character very relatable and easy to understand. It's super easy to root for the guy fighting against prejudice. He's also but one of the many cogs in the crests are bad machine. I mentioned this in the Mercedes video, but the themes of classism and prejudice due to crests work so well in Three Houses because so many characters have their lives influenced by them. And as an extension of that, it makes rooting for characters who want to fight against crests very easy and satisfying to do. So Hanneman's backstory works to make him very relatable and to play into the themes of the game at hand. And that goal to help people whose lives have been made worse by the presence of crests is no better demonstrated than in his support with Lycithia. See, Hanneman is privy to Lycithia's big secret, the fact that she has 2 crests, which is something that's not supposed to be possible. In exchange for keeping this secret from the watchful eyes of the church, Hanneman studies Lycithia's abilities to understand how this phenomenon works. However, Lycithia doesn't really like her dual crests, and Hanneman happily fawning over them like a kid in a candy shop has her get easily annoyed with him, often throwing insults his way and chastising him for his lack of empathy. Because Hanneman's whole "your crests are part of who you are" shtick that he used on Marianne really doesn't work with Lycithia, considering her crests are killing her. See, having 2 crests gives the user a lot of power. So much power that the body can't really handle it. Having double crests dramatically reduces one's lifespan. Because of this, Lycithia is a very motivated young girl. She has to be, because she doesn't have much time left to live and live her life in the way that she wants it. Hanneman realizes how insensitive he's being, and he offers her a heartfelt apology, showing the rare human trait of being able to admit when you've done something wrong. But more importantly than that, there's a vow that comes with his apology to her. Lycithia was informed by the people who forced the crests on her that her lifespan would be shortened, but Lycithia is one of the only, 2 people with dual crests. Hanneman surmises that because there's really no one like Lycithia, to say things about what will happen to her is pointless. There's not a way of knowing for sure because this kind of thing's never happened. Hanneman's end goal is to create a world where everyone can have a crest, so there will be no inequality caused by them. But in researching how to add a crest, perhaps the knowledge of how to remove a crest will come to him as well. Hanneman vows that he will do everything in his power to learn how to remove her crests, and Lycithia says that should he be successful, she'll consider becoming his apprentice, and their epilogue has him do just what he says he would. He removes her crests, and with her lengthened lifespan, she takes up his research after his eventual passing of old age, becoming known in history as the Golden Child of Crestology. This support is a favorite among Lycithia fans for good reason. It's one of the few supports where she actually gets to live, cause her crests get removed. But it's also Hanneman putting his money where his mouth is. This isn't something that's solved by a speech about crests, this is solved by Hanneman's research and inventions. Realistically, anyone could have given Marianne a speech about accepting herself. Virtually no one can remove Lycithia's crests except the brightest of crest scholars. So this support gives us a concrete example of Hanneman's discoveries being used to help characters the player knows, and for that, it makes his drive to invent such tools resonate with the player even more. The final aspect I want to go over with Hanneman is a simple one: his fantastic relationship with his fellow teacher, Manuela. It's not a complicated dynamic at all. Hanneman looks at the disaster that is Manuela and thinks, I can fix her. And Manuela responds with, the fuck you can! The two give way to a lot of enjoyable bickering and banter, but it's not the kind where it feels like these two characters genuinely don't like each other. Hell, to quote Manuela herself, she'd like Hanneman a lot more if she could just hate him. But they do understand one another, and it makes their eventual romance one of, in my opinion, the best in the game. Hell, might even throw out that I think it is the best in the game. There's no deep trauma, no startling statements about the human condition, just funny banter with two likable characters, who, despite being 51 and 36 years old, they're literally just children.
After I cooled down, I realized you were right. I really ought to try and keep my emotions a bit more under control.
Well, that's good to hear. It seems this wasn't a fruitless clash for either of us.
Oh, indeed. There's nothing more depressing than a pointless fight, is there?
What? Manuela, as your friend, I was only trying to give you a useful bit of advice.
And that so-called advice is exactly why I call you meddlesome and overbearing.
There it is. Manuela begins to protest even when she knows.
Hanneman is a character who really has it all covered. He has a solid backstory, giving way to a very easy to sympathize with motive. His story ties directly into the themes of the main game and enhances the overall story of Three Houses, which is exactly what a good side character should do. He even has moments of him just being a likable dude, with the charming and simple character moments down too. He's one of my favorite characters in the game, and one of my favorites in the series, and I swear, I hope I made you all appreciate him. Someone in this fandom has to raise the flag for the Foxy Grandpas, and I want you all to know, that person is me! So I did some spring cleaning recently, and properly arranged all of my Sacred Stones memorabilia, and grubbin'. But this is actually multi-purpose, because you see, each one of Sacred Stones' big characters is hiding $1. And you might think to yourself, why would you go through the effort of hiding only $3? Well, you know what those $3 can be used for? If you said, oh god damn it, here comes another Patreon shill, you would be absolutely correct. And kind of a dick, man. In this economy, you need all the money you can get, don't shame me. That's right. For as little as $3 a month, you can get access to the FEMS Paint Patreon, where you can get benefits like sneak peeks at video content and getting shoutouts in videos. And if you shell out $7, you can get access to polls that decide future videos on the channel. This poll is kind of like everyone tell me something and then I pick something. I was kind of strapped for ideas this time. Inspiration comes and goes, as it were. My Patreons include the likes of Andrew Crockett, Atomic X160, Benz Again, Dr. McBackstab, Elizabeth Von SR, Fire Emblem Lord, Follow Penta the North Star on Twitch, Galade Knight, Great Riek, Green Brigand, Hell on Heelys, Despacito 2, Keith and Coleman, Lightning Bolt, Memi, Neverix the Fallen Shield Guy, Olwyn, I swear to God this is not an ARG, Ranger Man Sam, Ryan Walter, Shen Lu, Space1255, Steph D, Tato, Anti-Ginger, Brentendo11, Drew Hack, Kazu Foxfire, Mathematicus, and Max. Thank you all for your continued support, and thank you for watching an episode on Hanneman. Well, there we go. We've reached the end of another character analysis video. I appreciate all of you for watching, and we've gone over 50 episodes. It's still going. Can't believe it. As always, I'd like to thank the Green Brigand for looking over the script and just making sure I'm not writing anything too off the wall, though I'll find a way to sneak by him one of these days. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to join me in my Discord. You're seeing images from it posted now. And also, feel free to like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, subscribe to the Patreon, and next time you play Pokemon, use a Snorlax. Just for me. Until next time.